Are you on?
Yeah, I think this looks good.
Boggs.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hello everyone, Dave Seaman welcoming you to a special draft edition of On the Bench with Columbus Wired. I'm here with Justin Boggs. We're outside Nationwide Arena. The big news of the Blue Jackets Friday. Let's start over. 3, 2. Hello everyone and welcome outside Nationwide Arena for a draft edition of On the Bench with Columbus Wire. Dave Seaman, Justin Boggs, and the big story thus far through the first round of the draft isn't who the Blue Jackets drafted, it's who the Blue Jackets traded for today.
Yeah, today Sergei Bobrovsky was picked up from the Philadelphia Flyers. He is their backup goaltender. Of course, we all know that Philly didn't really have a need for him. He only played in about 24 games for them this season, and you know, he has a high goal against average. It was over 3, but the year before he had a pretty good season. Housen came out and said today that he thought that he would feel rather comfortable if his two goaltenders were Mason and Bobrovsky. As surprising as that was, we kind of thought maybe they would make a little bit more of a splash, and they may still make another splash, especially with maybe free agency coming up, but certainly a little bit of a surprise coming out of Blue Jackets camp today. They only lose draft picks out of it though, so you know, I guess you can take it or leave it, but only to lose draft picks out of this, I would say a fairly good deal for Scott Housen in the Blue Jackets camp.
Well, he's got 1 year left on his entry-level contract, then he'll be a restricted free agent. In 83 career games, I'll throw these numbers out at you: 42, 23, 10. His goals against 2.73 and a little over 9 as far as save percentage. Mind you, that's over a couple, 2 years. But
still a young player too.
Right. But you think about the fact that Curtis Sanford, he signed with KHL, and Mark Dekanich not going to be a part of the Blue Jackets organization. Scott Housen had to make some sort of a move. He had to have something in the reserves, because he's all but said Steve Mason will not be the starting goaltender this coming season. Right,
and we all know that Alan York still is under contract. He'll be around next year as well as sort of backup, maybe a guy you would want to start out in the American Hockey League. But I still have my doubts that Mason plays very much in the NHL next year. I mean, he's really struggled in the NHL these last 3 years, and there's nothing that really makes me optimistic that he is going to perform, other than the fact that it is a contract year, and sometimes you see these players maybe step it up a little bit just because they know that the money is on the line.
Well, and of course, the draft has begun, and the Blue Jackets did not make a move. They didn't move up. They didn't move down. They did take the defenseman Ryan Murray in the first round with the 2nd overall pick.
Fantastic move there. I mean, a good defender. One thing that kind of struck out was maybe not the most fulfilling need, but certainly Murray is one of the most talented guys, kind of a big body guy, plays for Everett in the Western Hockey League, played for Team Canada in the World Championships, played with a lot of NHL talent, so he's played against NHL talent. He's played against the likes of Cam Atkinson and Jack Johnson. So, overall, I guess a good move for Columbus, a guy who they know might be able to step up and play in the NHL here. Maybe not this season, certainly next year. You certainly should at least see him compete for a roster spot come in the fall.
Well, and I think this also opens the door for other trades. I mean, there's the very good possibility a guy like Mark Mathot now could be moved. You put Ryan Murray on that third pairing with John Moore, you got a nice young defensive pair right there.
Scott Housen really has to feel like he's really shored up the defense. I mean, yes,
it's the best. In 12 years, it's going to be the Blue Jackets' best.
Absolutely, this is the best defense that Columbus has had. You look at that top pair; they kind of have a 1A, 1B pairing. You look at the Tutin-Nikitin line, and then you also see the Wisniewski, Jack Johnson line. I mean, so they've really shored up their defense, and then you add in a Ryan Murray, who could be an elite all-star level defender in the next 3 to 4 years. As I said, Housen has to feel very good about where his defense is headed. But on the other hand, we know that scoring is going to be an issue, perhaps goaltending, and of course Columbus probably isn't going to be without its top scorer come the fall.
Well, and yeah, as you mentioned, speaking of all-stars, of course, we're at the home of the 2013 NHL All-Star Game. Rick Nash.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are on draft day.
The elephant in the room.
Here we are on draft day. Rick Nash is still a member of the Blue Jackets. I know that high demand is what Scott Housen wants. He wants a certain amount of return, and at this point, he hasn't received what he wants, or hasn't been offered what he wants.
Right. He keeps telling us that he's not seen the deals he expected. I think he really has over sort of estimated what Rick Nash's value was. When the trade deadline happened, we heard rumors that the New York Rangers made a mammoth offer to the Blue Jackets, and he turned it down. Who knows what that really meant, but certainly that Housen wants to hit a home run out of this move.
He has to.
Yeah, his job is on the line, and honestly, Nash may not be the most elite player out there. I mean, there certainly are guys who can provide more scoring than Rick Nash does, and
especially when you're now throwing names like Jordan Stahl and Bobby Ryan from Anaheim out there. He's not the guy. And the thing is this, as I've said many a times, teams like the New York Rangers and the San Jose Sharks, they don't need Rick Nash.
Right.
And where Rick Nash has really strapped Scott Housen is, here's a list of 5 teams. We don't know if it's 5 teams or not. Here's a few teams that I want to go to. These teams don't want to blow up their team for a guy who may or may not. I mean, yeah, he won the Ricard Trophy his sophomore season. He hasn't really done much since.
Right. I mean, he's been a good, solid scorer, but would you put him on the level of a Ovechkin or a Malkin or a Stamkos, Crosby? There are a number of players out there who provide more scoring than Rick Nash does. Rick Nash is not a rare commodity in the league. So he's not looking at, if you're Sidney Crosby and you're being traded, yeah, you're probably going to get all the world for him. But Rick Nash doesn't draw that. So, and the fact is, though, he's also Columbus's only elite scorer. Columbus has a number of secondary scorers, Umberger and so forth. Crossbow, Atkinson certainly could provide that as well this season. But they need more elite scorers. They need at least 2 elite scorers. Right now, they only have 1, and potentially, if Nash is gone, which it seems like by all indications, he's got to be gone by late July.
If not, it's going to be ugly.
It's going to get really ugly. I mean, we're having the meetings with the agent, Joe Resnick, had met with Scott Housen yesterday, and it can't be good that these guys are having to talk for long periods of time when apparently no deal is imminent.
Which brings us, you kind of touched on it, as we now, the Blue Jackets potentially could pick 30th in the first round, and then the Blue Jackets have several draft picks over the bottom rounds. What are the most glaring needs? I mean, in my mind, goaltending is obviously you need to get a goaltender in this draft, and obviously scoring.
Well, I think what you're not going to find an elite scorer once you get down to the 2nd, 3rd round. I mean, at least unless you're the Detroit Red Wings, who can seem to find those guys in that
16th round. Yeah, it doesn't exist.
That's right. So you have to look at what you can get, and I would say a couple things. You can certainly get goaltending at this level. A lot of your top goalies don't come out until the 2nd, 3rd round. And then you also have to look at perhaps you might see some secondary scores. And I think from there, you just try to see, hopefully you find a diamond in the rough type player, a guy who can give you a 20, 25 goal season down there, like a Cam Atkinson.
Just to kind of wrap a couple things up, of course, the NHL announcing the schedule. The schedule is out. We know that the Blue Jackets will open the 2012-2013 season on the road, actually a 3-game road trip. The last time they did that, by the way, they went to the playoffs. But they will start in Chicago on, as I look at my cheat sheet, on the 13th of October. The home opener is Vancouver on the 19th. Some highlights of the schedule: Pittsburgh coming back to town. Will it be a pro powder blue, with the Pens coming to town, and then Valentine's Day we have the Broad Street Bullies and the Flyers coming to town. So,
hey, they're from the city of brotherly love.
And we mentioned the Blackhawks. The Blackhawks will be the Blue Jackets' opponent on New Year's Eve. That's one of my favorite games of the year.
Sure.
To come and hang out and bring in the new year.
It's when the coaches bash the media too.
Yeah, where's he at these days?
He's coaching the Chicago AHL team. That was just announced today. Scott Arniel.
And speaking of coaches, the Blue Jackets have now filled the roster.
Yeah, and it's veteran guys too as well. I mean, I think that was a big thing that was missing with Scott Arniel's initial staff. He hired a guy like Dan Hynode, a 33-year-old guy who came basically straight out of professional hockey, and I thought he was still playing. I mean, he's still younger than Vinny Prospal, for crying out loud. So he had maybe a little too young of a staff, considering he's a rookie coach himself, and certainly now Todd Richards has bolstered his coaching staff with veterans. So I think all positives here so far in the summer for the Blue Jackets.
But truly, the bottom line is the next couple days, the next week to 10 days, critical not only for the Blue Jackets for 2012-2013, but really the future of Scott Housen, the management, because if they don't get this right, you know, I've heard that the Blue Jackets season ticket sales are up. Yes, I said that correct, up. But, you know, when you dangle that little carrot called the All-Star game in front of people, of course it's going to be up.
Right, and you don't want an angry fan base as well. You know, you want to give them a product that is worth coming out every night. You don't want to have their tickets out here by scalpers for $15 at game time when they're worth $75. There's nothing worse than that. It really frustrates the fans. And, you know, big day coming up next Sunday. We have July 1st. That's the free agency day. That's really become a bigger day than the trade deadline. You know, you always used to be the trade deadline day was always kind of a national holiday in Canada, and certainly for us hockey guys, a big day. But now I think free agency has kind of become the big thing. We're going to find out where Jordan Stahl goes. We're going to find out where Zach Parise goes, and potentially that might be a day we might see Rick Nash go as well.
So lots of exciting things coming up. Of course, stick with Columbus Wired. We will continue to bring you, of course, written and video coverage. I know we'll be back for Prospects Camp in a couple weeks.
July 2nd.
We'll have some video with you from them, and of course, I have to throw out there the join the battle. Join the battle. And for Justin, I'm Dave. We'll see you next time.
All right. Very good.
10 minutes. You can edit that.